If you look at the failure of fiat currencies, they don't gradually fail. They fail spectacularly. And this is the premise behind the 1 million Bitcoin call, that it's not going to be a gradual, slow increase to $1 million a coin, but rather a very short and violent upheaval that sends us there in a matter of months, weeks to months. And if you look at the hyperbitcoinization landscape, what you do see is more and more countries coming out and mining Bitcoin. Bhutan, I think, is the clearest example of this. They have close to $1 trillion now in Bitcoin holdings from mining over the past 4 to 5 years. So if this is not an indication that hyperbitcoinization is coming, I'm not really sure what is. But countries that have excess energy, they can tap into that now and convert that into money and use that money for financing lots of different things. I believe we're also on the verge of countries issuing debt, sovereign debt, to buy Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin bond program, it is going to come simply because the MicroStrategy model has illustrated that this works, and it works very well. And it's just simply a matter of time before a country pulls that trigger and unleashes a torrent of sovereign debt to acquire Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is set to soar toward $1 million, driven by the explosive rise of hyperbitcoinization. This is the latest insight from January 3 CEO, Samson Mouw. With the U.S. debt reaching a breaking point, nearly $1 trillion needed annually just to cover interest, Samson suggests that the dollar could eventually be revalued against Bitcoin. This move would peg $1 to 1 Satoshi, the smallest Bitcoin unit, positioning Bitcoin as a modern gold standard and tying the dollar to it. Samson believes this shift could happen soon, especially with Trump's return and the potential creation of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. According to him, this could trigger a global Bitcoin revolution, sending its price to unprecedented levels. Stick around until the end of the video as Samson explains how and why more sovereign nations might soon back their currencies with Bitcoin.
Hi guys, hope to see you guys at Dubai Token 2049. We have exclusive 10% off the limited super early bird tickets. Click the link below. This pass will grant you access to speaking sessions, networking app, exhibition hall, daily networking drinks, and also included breakfast, lunch, and coffee breaks, all included the package. I'd love to see everyone there. Peace out.
I believe Bitcoin is severely undervalued right now. Even anywhere sub 100K is just a very rare anomaly. We should have been far higher than 100,000 right now, but I believe we're on track to 1 million. The ETFs have been an enormous influx of capital into Bitcoin, but that has been muted by the unwinding of GBTC or grayscale Bitcoin. So I think my prediction was earlier this year that the ETFs would send us there. I still believe that that will be the case, but it has been muted because of the unwinding of all the drama, I guess, that is largely held over from FTX until now. So we're getting to the point where we should be going parabolic very soon. First of all, you can look at the macroeconomic landscape and the massive accumulation of debt in the US. Interest payments are getting to $1 trillion a year. And I don't think most people realize, but these are astronomical numbers and these are absolutely unsustainable. So either there's going to be a debt jubilee or the US dollar has to rebase to Bitcoin. So, one Satoshi, there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, and you could reprice the US dollar to 1 Satoshi equals $1.
Why would the US dollar have to reprice to Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, there's no way to pay the debt off, right? And debt is far higher than GDP.
Yeah.
So something has to give. Either there's a debt jubilee all around, or you have to reprice or rebase to a harder asset. And it's difficult at this time to imagine the creation of a new dollar. Like you have that in many countries, when the fiat currency fails, you just make a new one and you lop off some zeros. But with the advent of Bitcoin, it's no longer possible because people they have an option now. They have a choice to go to Bitcoin or to accept a new fiat. And I just don't believe that will be the case. Therefore, it is inevitable that we do rebase to Bitcoin eventually. The question is when. But I believe $1 to 1 Satoshi is a fair rebase plan. Under a Trump administration, I believe we could see the start of that, which is the adoption of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So President Trump and Senator Cynthia Lummis have announced plans to create this strategic Bitcoin reserve. So to begin with, they would accumulate a massive amount of Bitcoin, potentially 1 million coins. And I think from there, the rebasement is just a matter of time when the fiat currency fails. When people no longer want to accept the dollar, then you kind of have to say, well, we will rebase to Satoshis as the underlying currency. And Trump has hinted of this. He said, maybe we pay off the debt by giving people a bit of Bitcoin. And I don't know if he's exactly thinking of rebasing to Bitcoin, but he's hinting, or at least his line of thought is moving in that direction.
Trump's return to the White House has sparked excitement among investors who foresee the U.S. becoming the global crypto capital. Bitcoin's price has already surged 20% since his victory, and many believe it could soon become a permanent national asset. Trump's proposal to create a national Bitcoin reserve has gained significant support, prompting several states to explore their own cryptocurrency reserve. Pennsylvania has introduced the Pennsylvania Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act, allowing the state to invest up to 10% of its $7 billion treasury in Bitcoin. This move aims to shield the state from inflation and diversify its investments beyond traditional assets like cash and bond. Additionally, Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis is advocating for Bitcoin to become a key component of the U.S. economic strategy, with backing from the Satoshi Action Fund, which has helped pass Bitcoin-related laws in 21 states. The group is also working on legislation to protect people's rights to use and store Bitcoin. With public interest in Bitcoin growing, these bills are expected to advance swiftly. If Pennsylvania's bill passes, it will become the first state to directly hold Bitcoin as part of its funds, setting a precedent for other states. What are your thoughts on these developments? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's return to Samson Mouw as he explains how Bitcoin sovereignty could revolutionize global finance.
Well, El Salvador has rolled out, their Bitcoin legal tender law, and we've seen a decent amount of adoption in El Salvador. But all over the world, you see a lot of Bitcoin adoption, but I wouldn't say it's at the hyper-Bitcoinization level yet, simply because I think the wallet infrastructure is not there. It's still very difficult to onboard people into Bitcoin, and this is something we're trying to solve at Jan3 with our Aqua wallet. It's a Bitcoin and Layer 2 wallet, and the goal is that we can use Layer 2 technologies like Liquid to onboard the next billion people to Bitcoin in a very simple and easy to use manner. We do see a massive amount of stablecoin adoption, particularly in Latin America, and just generally developing countries, and this is more driven out of necessity. So they're not really seeking Bitcoin; they're seeking U.S. dollars or digital dollars. And in places like Latin America, they don't even say Tether; like they just say digital dollars because for them it's synonymous. But they are seeking out stability in light of their currency problems at home and the debasement and inflation of their own currencies. So I believe that as Bitcoiners and people trying to push for Bitcoin adoption, we can leverage that and bring people into Bitcoin by offering stablecoins in a Bitcoin wallet, which has not been something that most Bitcoin wallets have focused on in the past, but is something that we are very much focused on. So that's sort of a Trojan horse for us, getting more people that are just looking for digital dollars into Bitcoin. I believe everyone will eventually have to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, simply because no one will want dollars in the end. So if the dollar keeps devaluing, which it has been over the past 100 years, almost to zero, then eventually people will say, I will not sell you this bread or these eggs for dollars. I want Bitcoin. And this is at the point at which you don't have a choice. You have to adopt Bitcoin as your currency, because if you do not do that, then you won't be able to buy anything. So it's sort of an inevitability. I think most Bitcoiners, like a fair amount of Bitcoiners, don't want to spend their Bitcoin, but
sure,
a good portion do, simply for the goal of spreading awareness and adoption. But there's a simple way around that, which is spend and replace. So while you can still buy Bitcoin with dollars, you can spend the Bitcoin and replace it by buying it back later. And in doing so, you're sort of fostering the emergence of circular economies where people accept Bitcoin and they spend Bitcoin out again. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to jumpstart that process somehow. There are definitely forces out there that don't want Bitcoin to be adopted. Some of it is not so covert. So you see the IMF actively at work trying to convince El Salvador to roll back or dial back their Bitcoin law or minimize it in some way. You've also seen the IMF exert pressure on Argentina. If you go back a couple of years, you'll see Argentina had a sort of a letter of intent saying they're not going to do anything with Bitcoin. But in other places too, that countries we've engaged in, such as Suriname, we met with their central bank, we presented a plan there, and then a few weeks later, the World Bank visited, and suddenly things go quiet. So we know for a fact that there are definitely interested parties that don't want Bitcoin to be adopted worldwide as money. The business of these supranational organizations like the IMF and World Bank is effectively to loan money and to keep countries impoverished, right? There is no country taking money from the IMF that has grown out of that debt or grown into prosperity out of borrowing money in and of itself. El Salvador is doing quite well now, but that's more to do with the policies and the adoption of Bitcoin than being able to borrow more money from the IMF. So I think it's their goal that they keep people borrowing, because then they keep their jobs and they keep their mandate. But that's not necessarily in the best interest of sovereign nations, that you're beholden to a foreign power to dictate what happens in your own country and with your own economy. Ultimately, the first and the most important function of Bitcoin is to be money. Once you have that established as a primary use case, then things like smart contracts can be beneficial, but smart contracts are more like icing on the cake, and Bitcoin is the cake itself. It's just ramping up. So I believe if Bitcoin does do its thing, which it should be doing very soon, running up to the hundreds of thousands of dollars to a million, then we should see a lot more interest on the nation state level. People recognize Bitcoin as a superior asset, and there's just not so much capital flowing into altcoins right now. The ETFs I view as a portal into money. So money can easily flow into the Bitcoin ETFs and by extension, Bitcoin itself through this method. So central banks can now buy Bitcoin or get Bitcoin exposure through those ETFs. You have pension funds now seeking exposure, but just more and more large institutional entities are funneling money into Bitcoin and not so much into altcoins. Even if you look at the Ethereum ETF, it's performing quite dismally compared to the Bitcoin ETFs.
To sum it up, Samson Mouw makes it clear. Bitcoin's time is approaching. While there may be some resistance from certain organizations, the demand for Bitcoin is growing at an unstoppable pace, especially as traditional currencies continue to lose value. As more countries recognize its potential and the technology continues to evolve, it won't be long before Bitcoin becomes the norm. The future looks promising, and Bitcoin is set to be at the heart of it all. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.